The Owl by Edward Thomas, 1878 to 1917. Downhill I came, hungry and yet not starved, cold, yet had heat within me that was proof against the north wind, tired, yet so that rest had seemed the sweetest thing under a roof. Then at the inn I had food, fire, and rest, knowing how hungry, cold, and tired was I. All of the night was barred out except an owl's cry, a most melancholy cry. Shaken out long and clear upon the hill, no merry note nor cause of merriment, but one telling me plain what I escaped, and others could not, that night as I went in. And salted was my food and my repose, salted and sobered too by the bird's voice, speaking for all who lay under the stars, soldiers and poor, unable to rejoice. Okay, this is a poem by Edward Thomas. Let's see, Edward Thomas was born in Lambeth, although he is of Welsh origin. His grandparents were Welsh, and I think he would call himself Welsh. He is a famous poet. He studied history at Lincoln College, Oxford, and then he wanted to become to earn his life by his writing, and he worked as a book reviewer, and then he wrote as a critic for the Daily Chronicle as well. He became a great friend with W.H. Davis, the tramp poet. He was also friends with Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. Anyway, he enlisted in the Artists' Rifles in 1915, and sadly he was killed. So what's this poem about? Well, this poem is about a traveller and the sound of an owl. And the traveller, he's been clearly walking all day, and he gets to an inn and he goes inside the inn and he eats, and he has a warm bed for the night. And while he's there, he hears an owl hooting from outside, and it's like the owl represents all of the people who've not been able to come into the inn he's in, the people who are sleeping out on that night, which I imagine is quite cold, or the people who are hungry and only have meagre rations to eat. And the owl is telling him how lucky he is to have a warm place for the night. And I think this is really alluding to the fact that we should count our blessings. We should be happy and thankful for the things that we have, and not constantly wish that we had more. So, The Owl by Edward Thomas. Downhill I came, hungry and yet not starved. So I came downhill, and I was hungry, but I wasn't starving. I wasn't dying of hunger. But yeah, I was hungry. I probably hadn't eaten all day. Cold, so I was cold, yet had heat within me that was proof against the north wind. But there was energy and heat coming from inside me, and this was enough to keep me from becoming frozen in walking in the north wind. So I was hungry, but I wasn't dying of hunger. I was cold, but I wasn't freezing to death. Tired, yet so that rest had seemed the sweetest thing under a roof. So I was tired, and that meant that a night's sleep under a roof, a warm place to sleep, a comfortable place to sleep, would seem to be the most wonderful thing in the world, but not totally exhausted so he couldn't move. And here he's saying, yes, I've got problems. I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm tired. But this could be a lot worse, and this isn't really anything to complain about. Then, at the inn, I had food, fire, and rest. So I got to an inn, and I went into the inn, and I had food, and warmth, and rest, the things that he needed, knowing how hungry, cold, and tired I was. So, yes, I was hungry, cold, and tired, and this was the perfect thing. It was the right thing for me to have, and it was enough measure to satisfy me. All of the night was quite barred out, except an owl's cry, a most melancholy cry. So everything outside, the night outside was a different world. It was outside the inn. It was kept out, and there was nothing of the night that came through into the inn, into where he was, except for an owl. It's probably a screech owl. I mean, maybe woo woo, and it was a most melancholy cry. So the owl sounded very sad. So the night outside sounds sad, and this owl's cry. This is a signal to him. This is something that he needs to remember. Okay, so a most melancholy cry. Shaken out long and clear upon the hill. So the owl's cry lasted for a long time. It was a long cry, and you could hear it very clearly on the hill. I think he's come down the hill, and he can hear the owl further up the hill. No merry note, nor cause of merriment. So the owl clearly wasn't happy. The owl was melancholy. And the owl was not a cause of merriment, was not something to make people think or make people laugh, to make people happy. But one telling me plain what I escaped, and others could not that night, as in I went. So the sound of this owl was sad, and it wasn't a happy thing. It wasn't something to laugh at. And this sound of the owl was telling him that how lucky he was to not have to spend the night outside. How lucky he was that he had food and warmth. And he should appreciate that he has these things, because there were many other people who didn't have things that night. And he went into the inn, but there were many other people who slept out on the hill, who slept in the cold, who hadn't had food, who were tired and didn't have a comfortable place to rest. So he's saying that this owl is a reminder of how lucky he is, and he's appreciating the luckiness in that he has in life, or the good things. And salted was my food, and my repose. So salt adds flavour to things, and therefore my food was salted and tasted really good. And my rest, it's as if it had salt. This is a metaphor, and my rest was salted, felt or tasted or was experienced very good. Salted and sobered too by the bird's voice. So the voice of the bird, the owl crying, reminded him of how cold and uncomfortable it would have been to sleep outside, sobered, but salted as well, because it reminds him that he's not going to have to experience that. He's got somewhere to stay, and how lucky he is. By the bird's voice, speaking for all who lay under the stars. So the bird is representing all of these poor people who don't have somewhere to go, who are out in the cold. Soldiers and poor. So maybe soldiers sleeping out, sleeping rough, and poor people. And they are unable to rejoice. So he is rejoicing because he's got somewhere to sleep, he's warm, he's got somewhere comfortable to rest, and he's being thankful for the little things in life that he is able to have. Okay, so quite a nice poem, The Owl by Edward Thomas. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. The Owl by Edward Thomas.